in 6 children under the age of 2 is acutely malnourished in Gaza. As we speak, the Americans, the Europeans and the Israelis did not come up with a specific plan about how they're going to gather that aid, vital supplies, medicine, food, and then how is it going to be distributed, where the Israelis are going to have a bigger say, what would be the reaction of the desperate local population. Couldn't this end up becoming a disaster?
Yeah, it is already a catastrophe. It is a disaster. It's an avalanche of human suffering, which is man-made 100% by the deadly coalition between Israel and the United States, as Mansour just said. So we know already, because Dr. Youssef Aborish, the Minister of Health in Gaza, said 2.5 months ago, he said that the triangle of death in Gaza now, it is hunger, it is lack of water, and it is disease. And we know from the investigations that have been done that the number of kids below 2 years with life-threatening diarrhea is now 70% of the kids. It's 23 times more than 2 years ago when this was last investigated. So there is no time to wait. That's the point. These kids are starving. Yesterday, the Minister of Health reported 18 deaths from starvation in Shifa Hospital. This maritime port will take maybe 30, maybe 60 days to be built. And at the same time, there are thousands of trucks with food and water standing waiting. So the problem here, the real political problem for Biden and the US administration, is that they don't have any leverage on Israel by just talking. What they have to do is to say no more bombs, no more money until you open Rafah and end the siege of Gaza. Because in the meantime, while we are discussing and drinking coffee and eating in our homes for breakfasts, the kids in Gaza will be dying. So it is an immediate need for food and water and to treat the sick and deceased ones. Actually, Dr. Youssef Aborish said that more people are dying from starvation, dehydration, and disease than from the bombing itself now. So this is so immediate that this whole plan can also be seen as a way to keep this waiting game going and kill more people, as the Israelis want.
Marwan, how do you explain that the Americans and the EU came together announcing both initiatives without any guarantees that we're going to see a peace plan, an agreement, a ceasefire that could be conducive to aid being channeled into Gaza?
Yes, that's precisely why I said that it's a desperate move. I don't think it's well thought through. I think Biden decided at one point, after a number of steps, to pressure Netanyahu into behaving like a human being, and failing to do so, he then basically acted desperately, such as proposing this kind of a way of dispatching aid to Gaza. He started with parachuting, and now there's the port. But clearly, President Biden, after dispatching Blinken and failing, his Secretary of State, after unleashing Kamala Harris, his Vice President, and failing, and after bringing guns, the war criminal general, in order to put more pressure on Netanyahu, and failing, after making a number of timid statements and not working, then he decided to do this, right? He basically come out to the open and says the Israelis are not letting the food in. They're basically using the humanitarian assistance as a bargaining chip. That is in by itself a war crime. Basically, the American president in his State of the Union had indirectly accused Israel of war crimes in Gaza, starving people in Gaza as a bargaining chip against Hamas. So why is that more important, Hans? And I think that sort of follows from what we've heard earlier from your guests. There is no logistical problem in Gaza. There is no, I would even say, aid problem in Gaza, even though the people in Gaza are starving. There's a political problem. There's a criminality problem. And the political problem is that there's a war that isn't going on, and neither Israel nor America would call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire. 1. 2, America would not use its leverage, as Matt said, with Israel in terms of stopping the financial aid and stopping the military aid to Israel in order to force it to stop its inhumane policy, its war crime, its genocide in Gaza. Once Israel stops its inhumane genocidal policy in Gaza, everything else will follow. Because what we have there in Gaza is not a tsunami, and hence there's a problem in getting the aid in. There's a war that needs to be stopped. America can get Israel to stop it if it wants to.
Mansour, you've been throughout the war in Gaza until 2 weeks ago. Give us a sense of life in the Strip just a few days before you left.
Yeah, I left Gaza temporarily on February the 27th, so just under 2 weeks ago. And my last memories was being trapped in the city of Khan Yunis, especially on the western side of that city, while the Israeli forces were raiding the civilian homes and the population there. I remember for days, together with many other civilians, we were filtering well water using sand, using coarse rocks, using some cotton buds in order to ensure that we had enough drinking water to survive. Together with many hundreds of others, we were all fasting every day from sunrise to sunset, relying on one meal a day, which can be as little as half a can of beans for a group of like 6 to 7 people. The situation there is very dire, and we're talking about the south, which is supposed to be better than places like the north and the middle region. Mm-hmm. What is happening there is a genocide. What is happening there is unseen. I haven't heard or seen anything like this for decades, and I am still shocked that the governments of the world, that the United Nations, have not acted in any way to put a stop to it. Like your guest said, it is a problem that can be easily solved for the humanitarian crisis, for hunger. Ceasefire right now, open the borders, and I am sure that everyone will be happy to see that 2.4 million civilians are being well fed, are being taken care of from their health point of view, and hopefully the political situation gets resolved over the next few weeks. But hunger needs to be addressed as soon as possible, and this ploy of the EU and the US setting up this port 500 meters away, it's just a way to a Panadol, just a way to ease the effect, ease the pain, while they can solve the problem as soon as possible using other methods.
Dr. Mance, the health system has been almost decimated in Gaza. Whatever happens tomorrow or in a month from now, will it ever be able to bring back the medical sector in Gaza to what it was before October the 7th?
I'm sure. The heroes are the Palestinian doctors and nurses and paramedics and medical students and nursing students. They have been phenomenal. They have been the beacon of hope and the moral compass to the world, because they have never left their patients nor their people. They have been killed by the hundreds, almost 400 killed, hundreds arrested and tortured, and still they stand tall. They will start to refunction once we can reopen, restore, and repair the Palestinian healthcare system under Palestinian leadership. Let us not make the mistake that we turn Gaza into a beggar community, a dependent community like Afghanistan. Because what we need is to support Palestinian sovereignty, and the hospitals are not that damaged. They can be restored once we have security for the patients and the staff, and we have a stop in the bombing. Now, for the question of this starvation weapon that Israel is using with the support of the US, I have to ask this question, because one thing we avoid discussing is the deep-rooted racism and colonial attitude that is governing both the EU and the United States, and of course Israel. How many Jewish children would Biden have allowed to be starved to death by an enemy who was incarcerating a Jewish community and denying them water, food, and medical supplies and bombing them? We know the answer: 0. And when you allow the Israelis, with the support of the US, to kill 12,500 Palestinian children, and to starve them and thirst them to death. This is such a massive attack on our humanity, and it is such a disgrace for our civilization, and that needs to be at the core of the discussion now. We don't have another day to wait. We must act now to put pressure, and the only pressure we can put is political sanctions. It is the leverage to stop the bomb supply and the money supply to Israel and stop them from killing more people. And they are, just the last 24 hours, I got the message from the Ministry of Health today, 85 killed and 130 injured the last 24 hours in 8 massacres. So the killing is going on as the world is debating, should we go here and there? And one more point I'd like to add. By omitting Rafah and Khmer Shalom as the 2 main entry points for their trucks, Israel can close off the fence completely in the south and then continue with their invasion and their massacres in Rafah, because they can point to that seaport entry and say, oh, go up there and get the food. So this is a very dangerous game they're playing, and I think the only reason why Israel allows the US to start building the seaport is precisely to get 100% control over Rafah and to end it. You see me.
Marwan, the notion of 2 aid initiatives, the Sea Corridor and the floating dock, create a sense of resolution, a sense of finally we're going to see an end to the conflict, an end to the war, and an end to the suffering of the people of Gaza. The Israelis, on the other hand, insist they will continue their offensive. The Rafah is just a matter of time before it starts, and that they are adamant on the need to destroy Hamas. Both notions of aid, on the other hand, no sense of vision about what happens next in Gaza. How do you see it?
I actually, maybe perhaps because I'm a bit skeptical or too skeptical, but I actually see it going in the opposite direction. I think the Americans understand that this war is over, meaning it cannot achieve its objectives, and now it's just basically killing people for no good reason whatsoever. For 5 months, the collateral damage has been the population of Gaza, the people, the children, the women, and so on and so forth of Gaza. Hamas was a collateral damage. The real target has been Gaza and its civilians, and the collateral damage has been the fighters in Gaza. And I think Israel's inability to achieve its objectives, but its insistence on continuing with the war, necessitated that the United States must do something in order to keep up the appearances of being holier than thou, humane and humanitarian, and try to help the situation in Gaza. Now, the thing is, right, that instead of going through Cyprus, Larnaca, and so on and so forth, and 350 kilometers away from the shores of Gaza, they could have sent the same aid to Ashdod or to Ashkelon, 12 or 18 kilometers from northern border of Gaza. That's within Israel. Because Israel today apparently would be inspecting all the cargo that will leave Cyprus to Gaza. It could have done the same, but in Israel, in southern Israel, and the trucks could have gone easily into Gaza. The problem here, the inside story, if you will, right, is that there is a racist Israeli government that actually want to starve the people in Gaza, want to create the conditions for ethnic cleansing. It wants to push the people out, if it can, by whatever hook or crook. And hence, although it can get the food into its own ports and deliver it to Gaza, it won't. And that's why the United States is acting so desperately.
I see a point. UN aid agencies are saying that an estimated 300,000 people trapped in the northern part of Gaza still face delicate situation, no food and clean water. WFP is suspending operations there because it's saying basically it's just not safe. Gentlemen, we're running out of time. I really appreciate your insight. Looking forward to having this same conversation with you in the near future. Mansour Shuman, Dr. Matt Gilbert, Marwan Shara, thank you.